Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show as we continue our conversations on the National Budget 2024-2025. We want to welcome Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for communications, the Honourable Symon de Nobriga. Good morning to you, Minister.
Morning, Rockers. Morning to everyone on set. Of course, morning to all our viewers and listeners.
How are you doing this morning?
Not bad at all.
I mean, I know I'm going to get a positive response because all the ministers will give me positive responses. But in terms of the budget 2024-2025, how did you feel hearing it read out and going through the figures and the documents?
Well, as we were talking about off camera, going through the figures, going through the documents is a challenge. It's a lot. But I think it was interesting, and I think that there was balance in there. The Minister of Finance obviously owns the reality of our situation. Right? We do know, as the Prime Minister said, I believe it was the Friday before that, that between now and sort of second quarter 2027, there are challenges. There are challenges with revenue. There are challenges even with our expenditure, and we have to be responsible in the way that at every level of society that we look at expenditure. But owning the reality of that, we do have to find ways to improve the lives of our citizens responsibly, assist small business, assist our micro businesses, our sole traders, our entrepreneurs, assist young people, drive our digitization process, drive our diversification, particularly looking at ensuring that particularly businesses at all levels, but our small and medium, where cash flow is so important, are being addressed. And I think that across all of those buckets, there was a consistent attempt to, I suppose, be the tide that lifts all boats.
Right. Now, it's interesting because that narrative is kind of juxtaposed against the minister saying that we now have recorded 3 consecutive years of real economic growth.
Yeah.
So how do we, I mean, for me, the balancing is key, of course. But if the Prime Minister is saying hard times ahead and the Minister of Finance is saying we have put the economy back on a sound footing and with the expectation of the arrival of substantial cross-border gas in the next 3 years, our economic future is assured, is what he said. So it feels like 2 different statements almost. Because one is saying, batten down, going and be rough. And the next one is saying, we're in a good place.
Well, listen, the fact is that both can exist at the same time. So we can see that things are tight but improving. We can see that there is growth, obviously not at the rate that any citizen of Trinidad and Tobago would want to see, but we are seeing the improvements and we are seeing that growth over a consistent period. So I think it's 1.3, 1.9, that's a sort of percent increase. But we are seeing growth in the economy. But the truth is that you can look at the revenue. I mean, the figures are there. Are there to see. The Minister of Finance has discussed it, the Energy Minister has discussed it, the Prime Minister has discussed it. And we are seeing that even as the economy has recovered post-COVID, has recovered post-Ukraine
But not just recovered, the Minister said it was doing better than post-COVID and pre-COVID.
But you can also say that both things are true at the same time. The fact is that we do have to manage the situation until we have the inputs from the work that the Minister of Energy is doing that sort of improves our revenue, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. And we have to see ourselves through to that. We've given a timeline to it. And again, consistently communicated by the Minister of Energy and the Prime Minister of sort of second quarter 2027, when that gas is going to come on stream. We've had the conversation with national public around the restructured ALNG situation and how that is going to impact and improve our revenues. But between now and then, even as the economy, through prudent management, improves, we have to be responsible. And I think that is just a consistent message. Don't get carried away. It's the same way we didn't get carried away when we had that spike in terms of our energy revenues during the Ukraine war. That was attributed to that. That we said, listen, we have to be prudent with this as well because we can't expect it to continue. It didn't.
Right.
And it's that sort of management, conservative, forward-facing approach to it that is required now. But it's always important to give timelines so that you understand what the path looks like and where the finish line is.
All right. In terms of anything in the budget stood out to you, particularly that said, this one I know for sure is going to make a difference or have an impact, even in the long term, long or short term?
I want to tell you, so of course, because I wasn't always a politician, I worked in private sector,
Right.
both for people and for myself. I know what it's like to be a small business owner. I know what it's like to be an employer. So the minister of finance signaling the VAT refunds was really, really important to me. The fact that he's looking at VAT in cash and again has given timelines December to pay for small and medium business owners, pay those VAT refunds in cash, and then looking at VAT bonds for larger businesses. I think that is critical. As an MP, the truth is that watching the increase in the minimum wage, looking at the impact of that in particular for the people that work in my constituency, as an MP, that is really, really important.
One of the things that was mentioned in some of the people who've been responding to the budget is that, yes, the minimum wage in public sector has increased only for public sector and there's no requirement on the private sector to be able to do so.
Right.
But do you think that increase in the minimum wage of the public sector would directly affect or indirectly affect those in the private sector as well, because they might decide they want more money or they might need more money because the cost of things might just start going up as a result of people having to say, well, all right, I need to pay a little bit more?
I don't know. That's the easy answer, right? I don't know that it will. Private sector has the ability to be a lot more creative in terms of their remuneration packages. So they may look at all sorts of incentives that also can go along with an actual hourly rate. The truth is that you don't have that sort of flexibility in the public sector. So you have to come down to a dollar value per hour.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know that it will. I think that again, it allows for us, for the government, to impact a large section of that population,
sure,
without not necessarily impacting small business owners. And so this is one of those situations where I don't think it will, and I think that in private sector you have the flexibility to figure out how you manage that. That doesn't necessarily mean that you also have to increase your hourly rate. But I am seeing the chambers in large part being in agreement with, if you want to use that term, in agreement with the policy positions that we've taken in the budget, and that's always a good signal.
Yeah, definitely. I want to jump across a bit. Speaking of the policies, one of the major things we've been talking about digitalization and that ministry in particular, but specifically when it comes to linking all the other ministries together, all the other government services. Yesterday I spoke with the Minister of Health and he was really excited about the digitization of records in the public health service, which of course we all welcome with open arms.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit to me about the integration as minister responsible for communications, right? The integration between those digital platforms for the various ministries. Is there a plan to make it all intertwined?
Yes. a large part of, it's interesting, and you should be seeing some stuff coming out in the Ministry of Digital Transformation soon. And I can say that because the Ministry of Communications
Should
worked
know.
hand in hand with them
Yeah.
in order to put some information together, right? There are a few big ticket items that the Ministry of Digital Transformation is tasked with, and of course I don't want to preempt the Minister of Digital Transformation's budget presentation in the debate, but I can tell you that interconnectivity between ministries is sort of number one, right? And it's what it really is focused on. I was lucky enough to see sort of a demo of what that interface would look like. I can't speak to it because, of course, it's at the demo stage, but I'm very happy to see where the ministry is going, because for a long time, I liken the Ministry of Digital Transformation in many ways to when you're building a building, you know, if people walk on the outside, you sort of,
is galvanized.
you could see, all you see is galvanized, and then at one stage, and then at another stage, you can gauge growth by blocks and steel and floors going up. But then what happens is a lot of the work is happening inside, and you can't see what is happening. But it doesn't mean that that work isn't taking place. So being able to go, and I could tell you from personal experience, being able to go to a health center and have your records available there, being able to go to Port of Spain General Hospital and those same records are available there without having to fill out forms here, fill out forms there. The Ministry of Digital Transformation really is going to be tasked and has been tasked and is doing the work that is required to allow for government to interface with the citizen and for the citizen to interface with government in a much more seamless way. That work is happening. I'm looking forward to hearing Minister Bacchus's presentation because I'm positive he's going to be speaking about it.
Right. Do we have any idea as to how soon we would see it coming into place? Because that idea of being able to go to the health center, go to the hospital is lovely, and be able to just have the information. That's great. But how soon? Because I think that's oftentimes the challenge, is that people hear about these plans and these things that are working. Like you say, the building, we see the structure, and it's up, and we know it have people inside, but we're just not sure what they're doing.
Well, let me say that I will let the contractor give the timelines, and I wouldn't speak for him. But I am comfortable in saying that I think that you will start to see that being rolled out, and of course I'm sure it will be phased, because you want to grow that platform, you want to ensure that any gaps are closed, but I'm sure we start to see that by middle of next year.
And similarly for the e-passports and digital departure arrival cards, I mean, I assume that also would intertwine with the Ministry of Digital Transformation.
Yeah, but once you have interconnectivity between all of these divisions.
But my challenge is understanding the dropout that took place, because when COVID happened, we had that situation set up at the airport. I remember seeing, and I had to go through it, the electronic arrival and departure system. And then as soon as we dropped the restrictions, all of a sudden the machines disappeared, they stopped using them. So how then do we get the same citizens, the same public, the same actual government workers, not the policy-making government, but the government workers, to keep the systems and learn the systems and integrate the systems into what already currently exists?
So it's interesting when you know that you have cabinet and you have specific cabinet subcommittees, and one of the subcommittees of cabinet is our Finance and General Purposes Committee. And the Ministry of Digital Transformation did do a presentation for our F&GP committee quite recently. And we spoke about the Ministry of National Digital Transformation and sort of what that strategy, that implementation strategy is going to be like in the coming years. And that was one of the issues that we did speak about. How do you sort of drive that message and get buy-in across the public sector? That is a challenge because change is always difficult. and sometimes just because it's change. I'm looking forward to that challenge. Let's put it that way.
Has a solution been derived, or we working on the solution still?
Listen, the solution is always going to be a fluid thing, because as you sort of communicate with everyone and bring everybody on board, the truth is that you're going to have people who want to buy in earlier than others, and you may have situations where you're going to have to lift the sort of late adopters to it.
Yeah. So did you see any? I mean, I tried to go through the estimates, but that document is. Whew, that document is a bit of a challenge.
It takes some getting used to. Yeah.
But did you see anything specifically when it comes to training for those things? Because I mean, it's lovely to have the idea of all the things and everybody wants to go digital and all that good stuff. But the reality of the situation, and even Minister Imber would have said, when we had the bacchanal with the property tax and people wanting to pay online and all that stuff, Minister Imber would have indicated that 82% of the public would still prefer to not use online services, right?
Scary, but
based on his research. I don't know what sort of data what sort of catchment that he used, but if that's the data that we're working with, that means that 82% of the workforce may not be willing to say, I get in on board one time.
Well, I suspect he used data derived from the financial inclusion survey that the TTIFC would have done quite recently.
Right.
I suspect that is where that data came from.
Right. So then, with that in mind, then how do we then persuade or encourage or train, or is there a facility in place in the budget to train government workers when it comes to that?
You have the Ministry of Public Admin that is tasked with that. And that is an ongoing. I get to see a lot of the circulars that are distributed across the public sector with this constant offer of different courses, seminars, some local, some in foreign jurisdictions, some in person, some online. But it does also come down to people seeing it work.
Yeah.
Right? Very much like I suspect property tax will be, that you want to see it implemented. That's the reality of it. And you also have to own that. You have to own the fact that change, again, you have people in any organization, in any society that will buy into change because they buy into change. And there are going to be others who need to see that change manifested, and then they will jump on board. So I think that is where we are, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. And I understand that, because a lot of people have been traumatized by change that comes sometimes every 5 years. Sometimes the change comes whenever there's policy change, and it doesn't always impact positively. And some people will be like a little cautious because they're saying, well, we're going to try this. And like I said, just like the kiosks in the airport, we tried for a little while and then it just disappeared. And some people were like, what happened to it? You know what I mean? But Minister, if it is that you had to leave the nation with a message to be cognizant of as we go over the budget and as we head into the next fiscal year, what would that message be?
I think the message at the end of the day, Rokas, and to all your listeners and viewers, is that the government is focused on driving this country through the next 2 years, taking us to 2027, where we expect that our revenues will be improved, that we understand it's a challenge. We are trying, despite those realities, trying to improve the lives of as many citizens as best we can. But we do know that it is going to be a challenge that we all have to face together. Government is here to support. We are seeing improvements in the minimum wage. We are seeing improvements in terms of salaries for public sector. We are seeing improvements for small businesses. The minister has shown data to show that the economy has been growing and has been growing consistently despite our external shocks.
And the internal ones too.
And internal shocks. But it is important that we try to improve in a responsible manner the lives of our citizens. We've given a timeline to our milestone of gas coming on stream in 2027, and we continue to be focused on the future.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Minister.
It was my pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Symon de Nobriga, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for communications, chatting with us about the National Budget 2024-2025. We'll take a quick break and we come back with more in our morning show. Stick around. It's Tobago Tuesdays.